So I'm currently coming off of a big tournament win in Chicago, scoring the 6 points out of 7 that I needed to share first place with two other people. Now, I wanted to do the responsible thing and go through each one of my games. So I'm going to give you short snippets of the adversity that I faced each round. This first game will feature the French defense, and it's probably the shakiest of games that I had. So, all right, this was the game I played my first round, and I don't think it was as bad as it seems. It just appears that I made a few or one big mental mistake that I'm not really happy with. So we'll probably go about 20, 20, maybe 21 moves into this game, just to that point. But I'll tell you how this one developed. So it went e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, and then bishop b4, going for a winnower, hopefully a main line. In this case, he played something that was, I guess, a bit worse than just taking on d5 and playing the position, which was queen to d3. Because when I saw that move and I was like, okay, what's he up to? I was trying to figure out what the punish to that move was. And the only thing I can come up with is that if I took the pawn on e4 and the queen recaptured, the best I could hope for is picking up an extra tempo by kicking his queen. Although he technically brought it to somewhat of an intimidating square. So it could be his preparation, but it was an awkward system, and I didn't think I would have too many problems. So we have queen h4. After the game, when I reviewed this or a possible improvement, it was suggested that I go about fixing the French bishop as quickly as possible. Maybe playing a move like bishop to d7 and then bishop to c6 and developing normally. But what I thought about doing was playing the move knight to c6, since it appeared to be a bit more challenging than bishop to d7. I mean, I should have known. I should have been a bit. I should have been aware of that, because if he played more precisely, then maybe he could have kept my bishop on c8, and that would have given me a hard time. So I played knight to c6. He played knight to f3, and I came up with apparently a novelty here. I decided to drop my bishop back to e7 to break the tempo or break the pin, and possibly bring my knight to the same square to either, I don't know if the thought was there of then fixing my mistake with bishop d7 and c6, but yeah, bishop e7 did look pretty challenging, so I went with that. After bishop d7, we have bishop to d3, and then I thought, or bishop e7, bishop d3, I thought this move was kind of a mistake, because I didn't know I mean, I was already planning to play the move knight to b4, but I didn't know what he would do about it if I played it. So I played knight to d4, aiming to take out the bishop, and weirdly enough, he decided simply to castle through this point, and I was like, okay, all right, you're 2000 for a reason, because in the first 10 moves, I'm able to take the knight off, or take the bishop off the board, picking myself up the bishop pair, and then also leaving him with a disaster of pawn structure with the doubled d pawns. I was thinking this one would be a roll, but as I may have mentioned, this first game was my draw, so it's kind of embarrassing that I wasn't able to put him away, and yeah, that's definitely unpleasant, because there was a lot of positions where the evaluation suggested I was winning. So to continue here, I held off castling for the reason that that's his only hope, which is to like pile up on the king side. I don't know how he's going to make any checkmate threats, but my king's not in any danger. So I thought to myself, well, let's just take care of my issues first. I can play b6, bishop b7 to fix my light squared bishop, and then not sure what he was doing after knight to d2, but because he's moving pieces away from his potential attack, I thought, well, there's nothing better for me to do than simply to get my king safe. So we have castles. Now I'm threatening apparently I don't know how dangerous a discovery this one is, but I think there was a point that my threat was like if I had played knight e4, I was thinking about taking on d2 so that I can distract his bishop away from the defense of his d pawn. Yeah, I think that was the threat. So he sidestepped it with g3, and I played knight to d5. And the idea behind this, I was a bit cautious about taking his bishop since it would make his central mess look not as messy, but it would also open the f file for his rook, and maybe he would have play. So I was really hesitant about playing knight to d5 and then taking on e3. So the game went rook a to c1, and then finally bishop to d6, where I guess it was mentioned that I already have a winning advantage. I don't know, probably about somewhere between 1 and 2 points. As you can see, his central pawns are a mess. I have the bishop pair, and I'm currently creating some potential pressure on his king with the x-ray on the g2 pawn and the x-ray on the h2 pawn. If he messes around, things could get really bad in a hurry. He plays f4. I take on e3. He takes back with queen, and we're getting very close to that point where I just lost my cool. I played the move c5, hoping that if he were to take, I could take back with the bishop and the game would end promptly. Otherwise, I was thinking that eventually I would take on d4 and maybe the game would end promptly. All that happened, and we reached the position with bishop to c5. He tossed in knight to b3, which I expected, and before doing anything about his threat of taking the bishop and taking a pawn with it, I tossed in a in-between move, queen d5, making a threat of checkmate on g2. He saw that, and we got to the position, or I guess we have gotten to the stop position. You see, I had sort of a mental meltdown here. I was trying to maintain control over the position, where making aggressive moves like taking, but I knew immediately taking that it would lose me one of my biggest advantage, the 2 bishops versus the 2 knights, which is kind of just a really big deal. So I thought about taking my bishop back to e7 or actually even d6, but I thought if I brought my bishop back to d6, my queen would look a little bit uncomfortable on the square. And I think I was fearing I think the difference between d6 or e7, I was fearing ideas of him pushing the pawn to f5, which technically he done later, and it gave him a fighting chance, which he really utilized to get that draw.